Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Big People Talk, and welcome to another Chinese segment. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the word alcoholic from the perspective of Chinese script. And I'm going to try to make this interactive so that we can all develop our critical thinking skills together. So I'm going to get right into it. The video that I shared this week is Pour Me a Mug, and it is a poem that I wrote in Japan to offer people who struggle with alcoholism an alternative to alcohol, which is Jesus Christ. And I know that may sound a little cheesy to some, especially if you've never had a relationship with Jesus yourself. But if you did, what I just said would make complete sense to you. But if you didn't, yes, it will sound like, it may not sound particularly inviting or appealing or even sensible. As some of you may already know, the poem that goes along with this Chinese lesson is Pour Me a Mug, which is a poem that I wrote in Japan as a response to people who drink a little too much, right? Maybe more than a little too much. Anyway, this lesson or this learning experience is designed to help us explore the topic a little more, or at least to look at it from a slightly different perspective. So, as I mentioned, the key word that we're looking at is alcoholic. And if you look at the script, the Chinese script at the top of your screen, you will see the Chinese word for alcoholic. It's made up of two parts. You see the black part on the left and the blue part on the right. The part on the left is a single word and the part on the right is a single word. So we have two individual words coming together to form the complete word for alcoholic. I'm not going to focus too much on the pronunciation because I don't want people to feel like their minds are going boy yo 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 yoing, right? I know that looking at Chinese script can take some getting used to, but once you do, it's actually not as intimidating as it may seem. I will just maybe say a few things about Chinese and Chinese script in general so that you're not too lost and you have some context for all of this. So first of all, Chinese script is thousands of years old. There are no new modern characters in the, I think it would be called the lexicon. I think that might be the right word. Lexicon of Chinese vocabulary or Chinese words. So all the words are ancient, even if they've been stylized over hundreds of years and so on. There are no new, there's no new Chinese script. It's all ancient. And some Chinese words are pictures. They are called pictographs. They're like literal pictures. And some words are ideographs. They represent ideas or concepts. Chinese does not have an alphabet, but they do have a system that they use to get around that. And the other thing about Chinese is that it is tonal. It's a tonal language. So the tone that is ascribed to each word is connected to the meaning. So you could have like 4 or 5, I don't know how, you could have lots of different words with the same syllable, exact same syllable, but with different meanings simply because they would have different tone markers or tones. And that may all sound complicated, but think of it like this, like when we speak English, even you're listening to me speaking now, my voice is undulating, going up and down and so on. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that, except in English, the English equivalent might be like, for example, when we ask a question, our tone goes up, right? You know what I mean? Hear that? You know what I mean? My tone went up. So we know I'm asking a question. Or if I'm making a statement, my tone might go down. Chinese is not as difficult as people think, right? My tone went down. I'm making a statement. It's kind of like that, except with Chinese, they go a little further and the tone is connected to the meaning. So the tone of a word will tell you the meaning of a word. And, you know, once you start learning Chinese, you get accustomed to the tones. It's not that difficult. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in learning Chinese, please do. It's a fun language. It's very easy. It's one of the most versatile languages I've ever learned. And of course, there are lots of languages that you could learn. So I can only speak for the languages that I have learned, which would be like Spanish, French, and Mandarin, and a couple other languages, you know, a little bit of a couple other languages. But Chinese is really useful for teaching so many different things. You can teach art. My art style has been influenced by Chinese. My drawing style has been influenced by Chinese because I've taught Chinese for so many years. It has influenced my drawing style. My drawing style is very, very linear, right? And the other thing about Chinese is, you know, connected to that, it's very artistic. So if you're interested in graphic design, Chinese would be a really good language to learn. It's also very, it's a very thought-filled and thoughtful language. So a lot of the script, or all of the script, is embedded and coded with a great deal of philosophical insight that can be applied to modern life, even though the script is thousands of years old. And that's because wisdom is timeless, right? Wisdom is timeless. Wisdom is like classic intellect. You know, it's never really outdated. You know, you just get these wonderful general principles that apply at any point in history. That's what Chinese is like. It's timeless, right? Even though it's ancient. The other thing about Chinese, because it's so philosophically rich, it's wonderful for learning or teaching critical thinking. And it's also wonderful, excuse me, it's also wonderful for teaching emotional intelligence, which I guess is a branch of critical thinking. So, having said that, let us start getting into our discussion about the word alcoholic. So as I mentioned, it's made up of two parts. The part on the left, which is in black script, and the part on the right, which is in blue script. And I've color coded my slide so that, you know, it will be easier for viewers to follow. Now, one of the things I should also mention about Chinese is that the script, each word, each Chinese word, which is also called a character, it could also be called a character, each character fills an invisible square. So if you look at the word on the left and you look at the word on the right, you would see that they fill approximately the same amount of space. The other thing is, and I think people would probably generally have this question, you may be wondering, which way do I read this word? Do I read it from left to right or right to left? And you know, don't Chinese people usually write their sentences and words top to bottom? Well, there are all kinds of variations with Chinese writing. Okay, it's not always top to bottom. Maybe that was more in ancient times, I would like to think, but now you will see Chinese writing aligned and formatted in different ways. In this case, with this video, we are reading left to right. Left to right, like we would when we read something in English. Okay. At the top of the screen, you can see the word for alcoholic. And if you're wondering how it's pronounced, because I know some of you may be wondering that and you may not feel happy until I tell you, it's pronounced Jiogui, 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 Jiogui. The word on the left is pronounced Jiu, and the word on the right is pronounced Gui. And when you put them together, you get Jiogui, Jiogui. The word on the left represents alcohol, and the word on the right represents ghost, demon, or spirit. So essentially, the word in Chinese for alcoholic is alcohol demon, or alcohol ghost, or alcohol spirit. And just as a general note, in Chinese, when you are talking about somebody who is some kind of addict, they use the word gui, ghost, demon, spirit, along with whatever they may be addicted to. So that's how you talk about addiction in Chinese. So let's look a little more closely at these words. But before we do that, I just want to ask you, do you think, like, if we just look at the words at the top of the screen, alcohol plus demon, alcohol demon, does that make sense to you? Like that an alcoholic would be called an alcohol demon? What do you think of that? Do you believe in demons? Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in spirits? What do you think? Let's think about that for a little while. I'll give you a couple seconds to ponder on that, and then I'll tell you what I think. Okay. I'm sure that some of you may have people in your family or friends or so on that you know to be alcoholics. And depending on how they react to overconsumption of alcohol, you may very well agree with this and say that when they get drunk, they are absolute demons. They become someone I don't recognize. Some of you may say, well, I know people who do tend to drink. They like the glass a bit too much, but when they drink a lot, they tend to just like get really sleepy. They just go to bed. They don't do anything. You know, some people may say that. In my family, we don't really, I think every family has specific strengths and specific challenges, right? Like when you look at a family generationally speaking, you could probably see certain patterns being passed down through the generations, right? In my family, I don't think alcoholism has really been much of an issue. So it's not something that I think I've observed up close and personal. But some of you who are looking at this video very well may have, and if you have, please feel free to share your experiences and your comments in the comment section. Alcoholic, what do I think? Are they alcohol demons? Well, here's what I think, right? First of all, alcohol. You can't be an alcoholic without alcohol. So that word is definitely correct and definitely goes along with the definition of alcoholic. The second part is the part that probably needs some discussing. So The reason why I'm doing these videos on like pour me a mug, you know, drinking alcohol, loving God's word, loving God, that kind of thing, is actually because maybe last week, I think it was last week, God directed me to do pour me a mug, very gently. I mean, it was just a thought that flashed through my mind, but I generally have a good sense of when God is talking to me, and I decided to, as I usually would, to obey God, right? So interestingly enough, a couple days after, maybe 2-3 days after that thought flashed across my mind, I was in a car, and I was a passenger, and just as the person who was driving and myself, just as we reached a certain point along a street that we were driving along, somebody suddenly crossed the road. And it absolutely startled me and disturbed me. Not because, you know, the person doing the driving wasn't speeding or anything, but what startled me was that I got a fairly good look at the person. He was crossing the road, and the road was fair, you know, it wasn't a very wide street. He was crossing the road to get to the other side where there was a bar. And when I looked at the person, I realized that they were drunk. I've never seen somebody who looked that drunk in my life. He was absolutely drunk. And the thing that was disturbing was not that he was drunk, because I've seen drunk people, but like I said, I've never seen anybody that drunk. What was disturbing to me was that, apart from the fact that he crossed in front of the car at a very bad moment, I mean, he could have gotten knocked down. That was the first thing. But what really disturbed me and startled me was that he did not even look human. He looked worse than a vagrant. He didn't even look like a vagrant. He looked like a vagrant, but he looked worse than a vagrant. He looked like he wasn't fully human. He looked like he wasn't fully human. And that's what was startling. I've never seen anybody look like that before. And I thought it was interesting that I think God allowed me to see that maybe in preparation for this particular video, because I knew that I was going to do the Chinese word for alcoholic, jiu gui. But seeing that person in that kind of depraved or degenerated state made me realize how literal this definition could be, and convinces me that it's actually not inaccurate. So I also believe that there are some people, maybe not everybody, who, when they get really drunk, really do become like the worst version of themselves, you know, and may say things that they would not ordinarily say. And me personally, I do believe that demons exist. I believe that they are real. I believe that they are intelligent, more intelligent than human beings for sure. And I believe that they're very active on planet Earth. And if you don't believe in demons, well, if you think they're just fairy tales, you can believe that at your own peril. And of course, it's your prerogative. You don't have to believe it, but from personal experience, I could say that demons are definitely real. And you know, because I had experiences in the past where that definitely indicated to me beyond any kind of doubt that demons are real. I won't go into that. Maybe maybe in another video I would, but take it from me, demons are real. I could tell you that. So yes, an alcoholic I think could be influenced by demons, right? You know, one of the things I learned when I was a teenager, when I went to like Christian conferences or Christian camps for kids. I don't know if camp is the right word because it's not like we stayed overnight, but you would, go to camp during the day, you go home in the evening, you come back the next day and so on, right? So I don't know if you would call that camp. But anyway, I do remember at one camp learning something that was very valuable. We were told as young people to remember to guard the gateways to our soul. The gateways being physical, and I guess our soul is kind of metaphysical. The gateways would be our eyes, what we look at, our ears, what we listen to, our mouth, I guess, like what you ingest. Same thing maybe for our nose, what we take in through our nose and so on. If we do take anything in, and you know what I mean. So those are the main gateways to our soul being the emotional dimension of who we are. So I do believe that when we don't properly guard the gateways to our soul, it can invite dark influences, evil influences, demons, spirits to occupy some space in our life. And alcohol, I do believe, would be one of the things that could open up a gateway, to influences that could be very damaging and very destructive. Not just damaging, but destructive. So, of course, everything in moderation. If we drink, but you drink responsibly. You don't get drunk. You don't overdrink. You don't flirt with danger. You don't try to see how close you could get to being drunk without being drunk. Things like that. As long as you're moderate and you're sensible, chances are you wouldn't be putting yourself in harm's way. A drink at a wedding, or when you go out with your friends, a little, I don't know, a cocktail, or not a cocktail, but like, you know what I mean? Like, as long as you're not overdoing it, it should be okay. But if you do overconsume alcohol, it really could open up your life to influences that could just overrun your life in the worst way possible. All right, so I don't know if you agreed with that. If you agreed, let me know. If you didn't agree, let me know as well. I'm curious about all the perspectives that this discussion is generating. Let's look at each of these words a little more closely. So if we look at the word on the left, which is alcohol, and we see it broken down here, it's water and wine vase. The 3 dots on the left, those represent water. Whenever you see those 3 dots, and I know most people not familiar with Chinese would say, how could those be dots? But in Chinese, they're called dots, okay? Just take it from me, they're called dots. Don't give me no hard time about that, they're dots. But anyway, when you see those 3 dots, you know that you're looking at liquid. And of course, all liquid has water, right? So It's water. That's what that's what that's what's called the water radical. A radical tells you what the root meaning of a word is, the core meaning, the essence of that word. And so alcohol is not alcohol unless it's liquid. So yeah, you need water. So you would see that water radical in a lot of other words that would be related to something liquid like juice or oil or, you know, things like that. I can't think of too many off the top of my head right now, but juice, oil. And by the way, if you have one downward dot and one upward dot, that would not be water, that would be ice. So for ice, for the radical for ice, they remove one of the two dots on top and it will become ice. Okay, so that's just an aside. So for alcohol, we have water, and that's a radical. It cannot be a word by itself, but you will see it in combination with other elements to form complete words. All right, the other part of this word is a wine vase. And whenever I've shared this script with my students, invariably, they would say that it really looks like a wine vase, or it looks like some kind of canister for a liquid or something like that. So I don't know, what do you think? You think that looks like a wine vase? Please put your thoughts in the comments section. I would love to know, does that look like a wine vase to you? Me, when I look at it, I am seeing like, I feel like the square part is the container, and the part that's sticking out of it looks like the cover to me. And then that line that's going, the horizontal line going through the bottom part, sometimes it does not, sometimes in some forms of the script, it does not touch either side of the square. But in this case, with this font, it does. But to me, sometimes it looks like the level at which the liquid is. That's what it looks like to me. So I don't know, what do you guys think? This particular word is a pictograph. So that wine vase is a pictograph. It's a literal picture of a container that would hold wine. And from my research, I think that wine would usually be rice wine. You know, I think China is known for its rice wine. Anyway, when I did a bit of research to just make sure that I had as much information as I needed to do this video, one of the sources that I checked said that the wine associated with this wine vase tended to be rice wine. So I don't know, that's either, I guess that's neither here nor there. But would you agree that water combined with a wine vase, or liquid combined with a wine vase or wine vase, would suggest alcohol? What do you think? I think it makes sense. I think that's pretty obvious. I don't think that requires too much thought. If you disagree with that, I would love to know why you disagree. But if you agree, let me know as well. Now let's look at the demon part, because that's, I think, the part that's really intriguing. So first of all, the part on top is a head, and it's a monster head. I couldn't fit that on the slide, you know, comfortably, so I just put head. But it's not just any head, it's a monster head in this case, the head of a monster. So demon, ghost, spirit, monster. You see all those movies that make monsters look cool? I guess they're trying to desensitize you to the fact that a monster is really essentially a demon, a spirit, a ghost, an evil spirit, and an evil ghost, okay? But I don't know, you may disagree with me or you may not, but it's up to you. You could decide, but that's what I think. So that part on top, and you know, you could look at the blue script and see if you're seeing the monster head, right? It's a monster head. And under that, we have sticking out of it the legs. You seeing the legs? The legs suggest that it's something humanoid. And when I say humanoid, I don't mean that it's human. I just mean that it's got like a person. It could have a personality. It's something that has human-like qualities, but is not necessarily human. But legs suggest something that is kind of humanoid. And then you have the next part, which is vapor. It could represent vapor, but that could also represent the word selfish. That could also it could represent like private, and it could also represent selfish. And in this case, with the vapor, as one of my sources indicated, the fact that the line is not straight suggests like craftiness or crookedness, being sly. And as a matter of fact, the word for demon, spirit, ghost, I forgot to mention, also has a connotation of craftiness, being cunning, being sly. Okay. So for ghost, demon, spirit, the elements that whoever designed the script came up with to encapsulate what a ghost, demon, spirit is head, legs, a monster head, legs, letting you know that it's humanoid, vapor, which is also kind of crooked. You can see it's not straight. And it could also be the word for like selfish, and it could have the sense of private. Okay, great. So for all of you who are now looking at this and trying to make sense of it, do you think it makes sense? Is that how you would describe a ghost, demon, spirit with, you know, do you think those three elements there are accurate? And by the way, there is no wrong answer as long as you can logically explain how you have rationalized the conclusion that you've come to. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple seconds to think about that. You can put your comments in the comment section, and you can let me know if you think that this makes sense. Okay, well, I do believe that in a lot of ways, the script for, or the character for ghost, demon, spirit, excuse me, is a pictograph, but it's also, to some extent, it's an ideograph. I think it's both a pictograph and an ideograph. It does paint a literal picture of what this person believes a demon looks like. I mean, I don't know if a demon turned up in his room in the middle of the night before he came up with this character. I don't know, right? Who knows? But who knows what drama went into the designing of these words. But and I shouldn't laugh because that's not funny. None of us would want that to happen to us, right? But it's a kind of funny thought, right? I'm just being facetious. But it is a literal picture because you're looking at head, legs, and vapor. Okay, so what do I think? And by the way, I'm just thinking of this off the top of my head. I didn't give this much thought before I started doing this video. Okay, so I'm doing it off the top of my head, just like you. So first of all, big monster head. That's really what that is, a big monster head. So yeah, think about the movies where you see monsters in. You ever see a monster with a little head? I think that's very rare. Most times the monsters have big heads, right? And I guess you could equate having a big head with being very intelligent. Maybe that's the thought here, that a big monster head may be pointing to a particularly intelligent being, right? Okay, the legs. Okay, think about the movies again. You ever saw a monster that didn't have legs? Most of the monsters in the movies have legs, right? Okay. And even if they don't have legs, it's still probably kind of humanoid in the way that they reason, you know, with things like spite and malice and revenge and all of those wicked things that drive some wicked people. And okay, the vapor. I think of the vapor in different ways. And remember, the vapor could represent different things. It can represent vapor. The fact that it's a crooked line suggests crookedness and craftiness. And it could also represent private and selfish, especially selfish. But anyway, maybe more selfish than private. Hold on, let me look that up and make sure. Let me not be telling you dotishness here, because I forget. I think of that as selfish. Let me look that up very quickly, and I will let you know. Oops, look for the wrong thing there. People, it's 4:10 in the morning. I have a class in 6 hours and I need to sleep. I don't know why I like to do this to myself. Yeah, it suggests selfish, but it's also a word that you'll see in the word, it's also a portion that you'll see in the word private. You know, that's why I thought of private, but it's more selfish than private. More selfish than private. But it is used in the word for private, as in personal, private. Okay, so yes, I know why I stay up like this. The reason why I stay up is because it's so nice and quiet at this time. I can hear my thoughts. It's quiet. I feel peaceful. I just feel better. I've turned into a night person. There was a time when I could function just as well in the day or in the night with noise or without noise. But the older I get, the more sensitive I've become. The older I've gotten is the more sensitive I've become to noise. Anyway, let's get through this quickly as we can. I won't rush it though. I'll do it properly. So, vapor, crooked, and selfish. Well, in terms of it being a pictograph, I could see the vapor. You know, you think of these like monsters with steam coming out of their nostrils or out of their ears or something like that. So I could see vapor being like kind of like smoke or like real vapor, like steam, possibly. In terms of this being an ideograph, I think that where I see the ideograph element is in the vapor. So when I think of, for example, what the devil does is like counterfeit everything that God does. You know, whatever God does, he copycats, but real close. So God breathed his breath into Adam. God's breath is the thing that gives life to the people that he communicates with, right? His breath. And in the same way, spirits can speak. And this pictograph or ideograph gives the sense that, I think it's more pictograph though looking at this, but this ideograph or pictograph gives the sense that like a demon can also use his breath. So, you know, you may hear yourself saying in your own head, man, I need a drink. I need a drink real bad. Man, if I want my friends to think I'm macho, I need to drink a couple, you know. Notice how many times I use the word I, but demons are very smart. So they could be talking to you, planting those thoughts in your mind controlling you into believing that you are the one thinking those thoughts so that you would faster listen to yourself. Because nothing humans love more than to listen to ourselves. And so they can literally get you to do their bidding by not saying you should do this or you should do that. Because the minute you hear a little demon on your shoulder saying you should do this, you should do that, you know it's some little devil with a tail and a fork on your shoulder. But the minute they say I, well, you thinking is you, right? So yeah, that's what I think of with the vapor, like the speaking, that breath, spirit to spirit, you know, from their spirit to your spirit. Yep. And the fact that the vapor is crooked, right? The vapor is crooked. And by the way, I don't ever think I've seen this vapor, this particular element. I don't think I've ever seen it in any word that has to do with God. I don't think. If I'm wrong about that, please feel free to correct me, but I've never seen any Chinese script that has anything to do with God himself that has this vapor in it. And so, you know, it's got this sense of crooked. And you think of the snake in the garden, the first time that we are introduced to Satan in the Bible, and the Bible says he was the craftiest animal in the garden, the most sly, the most slippery, right? And this vapor seems to convey that. And all the demons under him are no different. Like friend, right? And then the other thing is the word selfish. Okay, selfish. Are demons selfish? Of course they're selfish. And they're more than selfish, they're malicious. And they're hell-bent on the destruction of any human they can sink their claws into, right? So I think this is a very good illustration of what a demon, spirit, or ghost is. But what we're really looking at is the word alcoholic, right? So when you bring the demon dimension into it, what you really have, and I really think I really saw it so clearly in that person that I saw crossing the road the person crossing the street that I described earlier. Boy, he looks so, I mean, it was such a, you know, when I saw him, it was disturbing, it was startling. And you're like, how does somebody get to that point? I mean, that you don't even look human. He did not look human. He didn't even look like a regular, typical drunkard. He looked like a demon. That's what was so startling. And his skin was I think that was the other thing. His skin, his hair, his clothing, he looked dirty, but his skin, his clothes, he did not look human. And so I think that when you look at the Gospels, you see how many times there were quite a few occasions where Jesus cast demons out of people. And I know I've heard one pastor that I know say that, you know, when you are dealing with something that is really extreme, something that is really kind of extremely abnormal, in terms of behavior or appearance, that kind of thing, especially behavior, I should say. I shouldn't say appearance, but definitely behavior. Chances are you're dealing with a demon, right? And no addiction is normal. No addiction is normal. The Bible says that the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And if you're an alcoholic and you're listening to this video, I'm sure that you can agree that through whatever addiction you have, things are being stolen from you. You feel like part of you is being killed and is dying daily. And you feel like your life is being destroyed, right? And that is a clear, if those three things can be ticked off with respect to whatever you're experiencing right now, then that's clear evidence. Those are telltale signs that the devil, a demon, an evil spirit, a ghost that you can't see, but whose presence is evident through other manifestations of what they're doing. Bet your bottom dollar some spirit, demon, ghost is terrorizing you, right? And the way to deal with a problem like alcoholism or any kind of addiction, I think, is twofold. First of all, even if you do not believe in God or Jesus or any of that, I would encourage you, my brother, my sister, please get some professional help. Seek out a psychologist, a therapist, a psychiatrist, somebody who can offer you professional help. Because chances are you really, if you are really as far gone as being fully addicted, an alcoholic or drug addict or whatever you may be, addicted to food or sex or excuse me, or paint or thinners or whatever it may be, you really need the help of a professional. And there is no shame in getting professional help. We live in a world where probably half of the world has some type of psychological issue that either they're not aware of or they're pretending doesn't exist. And then those same people will turn around and laugh at people who go in to see a psychologist or psychiatrist when they themselves should be doing the same thing. I'm telling you, at least half the planet is probably in that boat. Okay, so I would encourage you, please get some help. The other thing is, if you are a believer, or even if you're not, I would encourage you, seek out God, call out to God. I would encourage you, seek out God, cry out to God, get close to God, say, God, I need you, please help me. Study the word. If you can, find a Christian counselor or therapist or somebody who could also, together with their professional experience, also maybe combine that with their relationship with God. I mean, that combination can be very, very powerful. So the other thing is, as you fill your life with more and more of the Spirit of God, the presence of God, it will ultimately displace the presence of evil in your life. It could happen overnight. It does happen like that with some people, or it could take time. I mean, it takes time to form an addiction, and it can take time to completely dismantle it. Of course, God is capable of anything. So there are some people, you know, he sets them free in a snap of a finger, right? And then there are some people who have to work through things over a period of time. It could be months, could be years, could be decades. I don't know how long it would take in your case, but I would say trust God. He is kind, he is loving. He, you know, the Bible says a bruised reed he will not break. If you come to God broken, your spirit is broken, your hope is gone, whatever it is, he will not break you down even further. God is very gentle with the hurting, very kind, very patient with those who are wounded in spirit, and he will gently lift you up and help you get back on your feet. So, you know, I really hope that this has been helpful to somebody. I plan on doing another video related to Pour Me a Mug that will also be Chinese based. It will be quite different from this one, I think. But if you are an alcoholic, just know that there is hope for you. There is always hope. And in God, in Jesus Christ, there is always, always hope. And so if you need to get help again, please get that help. If you found this video helpful, if you enjoyed it, if you have any questions, if there's anything you'd like to add, if there's anything you'd like to correct, I don't claim to know all the things about Chinese. I don't claim to know all things about anything. So even if there's anything you felt, you know, you'd like to correct or you'd like to add to, please feel free to put them in the comment section. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more content like this, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Thank you very much for listening and for viewing, and until next time.